Hello, I would like to welcome you all, my colleagues and our audience to our session. It is an international experience exchange session on good examples of innovative planning. The session is organized with the partnership of Marmara Municipalities Union and Istanbul Planning Agency of Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality. It is a pleasure to be a part of MARUF, this great event. My name is Burcu Özüpak Güleç. I am the coordinator of Vision 2050 office at the agency. I am responsible to lead the preparation of Istanbul's Vision 2050 strategic plan and its action plan. Today, I will be presenting Istanbul's approach, and also I will do my best to moderate this session. Today, we are together with the strategic planning departments of prominent global cities. From Barcelona, we have Oriol Estela Barnett. He is the General Coordinator of Metropolitan Strategic Plan of Barcelona. Welcome, Oriol. From Beijing, we have Yimin Wu. She is a planner at Beijing Municipal Institute of City Planning and Design. Hello, Yimin. From Gauteng, we have Rashid Sedat. He is the Executive Director of Gauteng City Region Observatory. Hello, Rashid, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Today, we will be discussing strategic planning experiences from very different regions of the world. We will talk about any creative and innovative approaches in terms of city planning, as well as participatory models we've facilitated until now. We will share our experience regarding the challenges, achievements, failures, and lessons learned while planning the future of our cities. Barcelona, Gauteng, Beijing, and Istanbul are very big metropolitan cities, metropolitan areas. We face complex and multi-layered problems, challenges. From our speakers today, I believe we will hear many similar challenges actually, and also very unique approaches. As planners of global cities, it's really important to exchange our experiences and collaborate to rethink and take action together to tackle with the global challenges for a better urban future. At this session, we will have presentations for 15 minutes from all 4 cities. After listening to these 4 experiences, we will at the end have a discussion, question and answer session for 15 to 20 minutes. We will be happy to answer questions from the audience. So I would like to encourage our audience to ask questions to us. With the permission of my colleagues today, I will present Istanbul's approach at the very beginning so that I will be able to focus on moderation. Thank you for your permission. And I will focus more on time management, actually. So I will directly share my screen with you. Before explaining our approach, I want to give some facts about Istanbul. Istanbul is around 16 million. It has around 16 million inhabitants today. And since 1950s, with industrialization of the city, there was a big increase, sudden increase in the population number. And parallel to this, the settlement has expanded. There was a big urban sprawl, which actually consumed the natural lands as well. So we have some challenges of transportation, basically caused by some bottlenecks. We have a Bosphorus in our city, which brings us transportation limitations, and also the distribution, spatial distribution of functions, housing and jobs. And we have young population, which brings us education and employment policy challenges. We have a important ecology to be preserved, protected. Our economy, Istanbul's economy, is 30% of Turkish economy, and which is fragile. So it's a big challenge to preserve this. And also only 0.5 of economy is agriculture. And although we have a little agriculture, we have a lot of consumption. We consume 7 million tons of fruits and vegetables every year. So food systems, resilience and sustainability of food systems is a big challenge for us. We have big infrastructure projects, and we lost a lot of greenlands because of that. We have many risks like flood zones, earthquakes, and many people are living in these risk zones, and a great stock of buildings are under risk. So urban transformation is a big challenge for us. And Istanbul has always been a hub for migration, but today we are facing a really fast growth of international migration. So we have more than 2 million refugees living in Istanbul. And Istanbul is a city in between East and West. We have an identity, and we have 39 districts, sub-identity challenges as well. So how urban planning responds to all these challenges? Obviously, we don't think anymore just technical. We don't do any technical plans anymore. We moved on to co-deciding, co-thinking about our future. From rational technical planning, we moved on to participatory strategic planning and thinking future and current problems, trying to solve them together. We moved on from zoning to coexistence of functions, coexistence of societies, identities, nature, and settlements. And from reacting, we move on to co-acting. So to face with these challenges, the new mayor established Istanbul Planning Agency. Istanbul Planning Agency is a think tank of metropolitan municipality. So we think with Istanbul citizens. Actually, whoever has a word in Istanbul's future, our door is open to them. Istanbul Planning Agency is composed of 5 units, 5 offices, and each serve to solve a different problem in terms of management of the city. At Division 2050 office, what we try to do is we try to identify the main challenges, potentials of mega cities and Istanbul. We try to facilitate participatory and scientific decision-making, and our main responsibility is to prepare Istanbul's Vision 2050 strategy document. This is actually what we do, how we do. We rethink, co-think about Istanbul. We try to change. I mean, I can say that the most important difference with this office is that Istanbul's people did not have much space to discuss their problems together. Now we want to be that space to talk. So what we do different is we really have an ambitious agenda to talk together, co-think actually. So we define the problems, we analyze, and we try to reflect it to Istanbul's people. And we want to hear and bring the discussion, disseminate discussion to everyone. And if there isn't any discussion, we want to initiate the talk on the problems and enhance interaction. What we do is we provide data, we provide expertise, experience from national and international levels. I think one of the most important changes is that we want to co-produce policy options, project actions, but we seek for commitment from the city management. Actually, this is what I explained. We focus more on mutual learning and democratic participation in our strategic planning process. And we work really with anyone who has a word, and we are trying to reach all the committee members, activists, experts, academicians, NGOs. We are working with them together until now. And also I want to focus on, we also we work interdisciplinary, but we work interscale actually. So, and we we believe that it is very beneficial when we are planning at this really upper scale, at the metropolitan scale. This is one of the examples. For example, there was a recent dispute between the citizens of one of the districts with the district municipality. Istanbul Planning Agency was the mediator of this discussion. We had workshops, we brought experts, citizens, and the municipality workers, employee, and also the politicians at the same table. And we produced a policy paper together with all parties. Obviously, we didn't solve the dispute, but at least there is a ground to talk on and to move on the discussion. And also another scale, Marmara scale, regional scale. Recently, we had a big problem, environmental crisis at Marmara Sea, and we wanted to reflect the problem to the community, remind the problem is still going on. So with this information, to provide this information, we brought experts, we organized the summit, Marmara Summit, and also to monitor what's going on. We actually developed this website which shows the actual situation of the pollution at Marmara Sea, to be able to participate in monitoring what the strategies developed to protect the sea and all the region around Marmara. So actually what we do, we like other strategy documents, we try to prepare this long-term roadmap of the city's future. We bring in local and global dynamics, especially when we are considering such a metropolitan global city. And we are trying to solve the current problems of Istanbul with a new approach. We co-think and co-plan. As I said before, we are really ambitious about this. And we try to have sustainable relations with the stakeholders and with international platforms, institutions, to enable the implementation. We are considering the implementation of the plan as well. And we work with academicians, experts in a very feasible and result-oriented manner. So actually, this is our process of strategic planning. It looks really like other strategic planning processes. Until now, we've tried to understand what's going on, the current situation, and we've tried to set the vision of Istanbul, the main targets of Istanbul. It was a lot of consultation process, actually, lots of focus groups, search conferences, and lots of interviews, and lots of data, obviously. Now we are at the fourth stage. We are trying to develop policies and strategies. There will be much more consultation and inclusion processes involved. We will involve the participants and stakeholders. At the fifth stage, when we are planning the action plans, we will focus more on actually co-planning, so that we really want this plan to be implemented, so that they really need to be a part of the action plan. We have to create it together. And then we will establish a monitoring system so that we will monitor the plan until 2050. These are just the areas that we work on, and some photographs from our consultation and involvement processes. We had, unfortunately, in spring, they were all online, but I'm happy that after vaccination, now we moved to physical events. This is a search conference with youth, which was really mind-opening. It was a wonderful day for us. I just, because of our time is limited, I want to summarize my outcomes of these processes. I think it is important to have an interdisciplinary and interscale approach. It feeds the strategic planning system a lot. An interscale approach brings us opportunities to talk more with citizen level. And it is really valuable to talk with all participation groups in every phase, starting from the planning of the process. We could do that. We've planned and how to define our approach with our stakeholders. I think it increases the ownership of the plan. Otherwise, it is really impossible to implement this plan. And co-thinking with and acting with youth, I think it is very valuable because from what we saw, young people capture the present and future with very different references. They have a very different language and they want to be a part of the solution in their own way. And this is very creative and exciting, actually. I think there's a lot to learn from it. And there are some challenges maybe we can focus on in our discussion, but I just think sometimes planning teams, we have obsession for over-analyzing or over-participation. In this case, we do it on purpose, actually, the participation. And sometimes the strategies that we talk at this level, metropolitan level, are too abstract for participation of all. So it's an issue. It doesn't make sense. And it is really hard to understand and reflect the real needs of all. It's not possible to get the participation of all, but really we need to capture all the real needs of citizens of the city. And reading so far future from today, with reference to today and today's trends, is a little risky. We see that long-term planning fails when we get crisis situations, we get unexpected scenarios from flow of migration, disasters, earthquakes, pandemics. So it's a question and it's a big challenge. And in our case, there are so many plans, unimplemented plans. So these unimplemented plans cause mistrust to the planning systems, planners. So I think this is the summary of my learnings from these processes. Thank you for listening. And now I would like to give word to Oriol Estela Barnett. He is the General Coordinator of Metropolitan Strategic Plan of Barcelona. He is an economist and geographer. He is an expert on local development, urban territorial strategic planning, and local governance. He will talk about how they are introducing an innovative approach in Barcelona's 6th strategic plan since 1990. The word is yours, Oriol.
Thank you very much, Burcu. Thank you very much to the organization to invite me to participate in this interesting forum with such important cities at my side. Yes, I will share my presentation here and start the timer so to make your work easier if I can. And what I will explain that we are right now we are working in the 6th strategic plan for the Metropolitan Barcelona. Actually, it's the third one for Metropolitan Barcelona. The first three were for the city of Barcelona, and the first of them was approved in 1990, so 30 years, more than 30 years ago. And from this experience, one of the most important things has been the jump from the city level to the metropolitan level, and it's something that we have now, let's say, improved with a new scale for the Metropolitan Strategic Plan. I will show you right now what I am talking about, because, well, of course, I must begin with an explanation about what do we mean with Metropolitan Barcelona, what is Metropolitan Barcelona. So you all know, I hope, where Barcelona is, and this is Catalonia on the bottom right. Catalonia is our region, and you have here the metropolitan region and the metropolitan area of Barcelona. We talk about a metropolitan region and a metropolitan area. So what is the difference? Of course, the territory in the metropolitan region is 164 municipalities and over 5 million inhabitants, and the metropolitan area is 3.2 million inhabitants and 36 municipalities, one of them being the city of Barcelona. Here, right in the middle, the city of Barcelona counts for half of this population, 1.6. So we have the city of Barcelona with 1.6 million inhabitants and 35 municipalities around Barcelona that assume 1.6 million inhabitants more. But we have the metropolitan region, and the big difference beyond the scale is that we have a formal institution, we have a second level local government for the metropolitan area. We have a metropolitan authority here, but we don't have this for the metropolitan region. And why is this important? This is very important because if you look the city and the metropolitan Barcelona like this, you will realize that the metropolitan region is extremely linked with the metropolitan area and with the city of Barcelona, although the territory is different because, of course, it's not a continuous urbanization here. There's no, there are these corridors, these urban corridors, because we have here like mountains, but not very big mountains, but like hills. But we have the metropolitan region that functionally goes beyond the limits of what is the metropolitan authority today. So this would be the city of Barcelona approximately. This would be the metropolitan area. And you can see that beyond these limits, we have still a continuity, urban continuity in these corridors, especially in the coast, the seaside, and through the mountains. So what is our main challenge right now? So for the first time, the strategic plan, the Metropolitan Strategic Plan, will cover all the metropolitan region. And this is a very, very big challenge because we are talking about a very complex territory with no authority. There is no a single authority backing this territory and in charge of this territory. So everything that we will do here, every strategy, projects, etc., must come from the cooperation, from the collaboration among all the stakeholders. And of course, we as a public-private partnership, we involve also private stakeholders in the governance of this territory. We must talk about governance and not government, because of course there is no still government for the whole metropolitan region. So this is the first big challenge for us. And it's very interesting because yeah, there is no let's say conscience from the people, citizens, and even institution about this territory, as there is no an official identification of this territory with a specific authority or with any specific level of government. So we must convince them that this is the territory that is worth to work for, because all the everyday problems and challenges happen in this metropolitan region, not only in the metropolitan area. So, well, these are the institutions that are involved in the association, in the Metropolitan Strategic Plan of Barcelona Association. They are the founder ones, and there are different levels of government. We have business associations, we have trade unions, we have the university, etc. And this is the path that I followed the 5 previous strategic plans. So the first 3, as I said, were related with the city, and they started right before the Olympic Games in 1992. And of course, the goal for the first 2 strategic plans were to take advantage of the projection of the city due to the celebration of the Olympic Games. Then in the late 90s, like almost every city, every global city in the world, the strategic plan was around the knowledge city, how to become a knowledge city. And then in 2004, we had the first metropolitan strategic plan that, of course, was focused on this idea of metropolitan city. But I said again, it was only for the metropolitan, what today is the metropolitan area, not the metropolitan region. And it was the same for the last one until now, that was Barcelona Vision 2020, that was focused also in the metropolitan area. What we have done now, as I said, is to go beyond. We are now in this process that is called Barcelona demà. In Catalan, this means Barcelona tomorrow. And the Metropolitan Commitment 2030, Compromís Metropolità 2030, will be the new strategic plan that we expect to approve in June 2022. We are working now in the second phase of this strategic plan. As you see on the left, in the logo of the new strategic plan, you can see the 3 layers. No, you see the. Oops, sorry. You can see. Oops. You can see like this B that means Barcelona, the city of Barcelona. The first circle or half circle that would be the metropolitan area, and the third one, the metropolitan region. So Barcelona demà, as I said, is the process to design this shared strategy for the metropolitan region in order to face 21st century challenges. And the Metropolitan Commitment will be the result of this. And we define the new strategic plan as a set of collective missions aimed to boosting social and economic progress, reduce metropolitan inequalities and urban segregation. This is for the first time the main goal of the strategic plan, to reduce metropolitan inequalities and urban segregation. In the past, as you have seen, the main goals for the strategic plans were to project the city internationally, to attract talent, to attract investments, the knowledge city, etc. But now, for the first time, we put this very, very important issue of the metropolitan inequalities in terms of social inequalities and territorial inequalities. That means urban segregation. And of course, in the context of climate emergency. And now we had to add this phrase in the last year and the post-COVID world, because a lot of circumstances are changing, especially when we look at this metropolitan region, because we are having now a lot of changes on the distribution or emergent changes in the distribution of population, of economic activity, and so. So this is the new plan, and we say that this is innovative, at least for us, in relation with the past 5 strategic plans, for several reasons. The first one is the way that we are building this new strategic plan. We said that the office, the coordination office, that I am the director the association, is acting like a sensor. Like a sensor means that we are in every event, we are gathering information from all the stakeholders. Fortunately, in Barcelona, we have a wide ecosystem of institutions, think tanks, governments, etc., that provide almost every day new information about what is happening in the metropolis, in the city and in the metropolis. So we only have to have an active listening of the territory of all these institutions, and to gather the information and gather energy and resources to define and to foster projects, common projects aligned with the strategy. So from the coordination office, we've been doing this work intensively since 2019, and for a couple of years we've been gathering all this information generated by the metropolitan ecosystem of knowledge and other institutions. Then we have been working in 2020 with a commissariat of 12 people from different ages and different backgrounds. And with them, we have posed 68 challenges that make sense at this scale, specifically at this metropolitan scale. Now, from these challenges, we will work on defining missions, and these missions that will form the Metropolitan Commitment 2030. We will work in the future as an incubator for this for the projects that will make these missions possible for 2030. As I said, this is the wide ecosystem that we have to work as a metropolitan sensor. So we are working with networks, international networks of cities that are based in Barcelona. We have community platforms. We have, of course, media that is aware of what is happening in the metropolitan region, and we are working with them. Participatory processes, not ours, but other participatory processes that we can take advantage of the information that they are generating, observatory research centers, and of course, government agencies, plans, and processes. And this is the scheme of what all the instruments, all the tools that we are using for the new strategic plan. So in this time, it's difficult to explain every single one, but of course I am open to questions at the end of the presentations. But the most important thing is that we are always observing 5 principles to incorporate new tools and new agents to the metropolitan plan. So this is the territory. So we must work on this with this idea of metropolitan region that is new for all the institutions. We must focus on inequalities. We have to build broad alliances in the quintuple helix. We said, the government, private sector, academia, citizen platforms, and we add media, because for us media is very important to explain to the people why this scale of metropolitan region is important for all. And then we have worked in a proactive and positive way to say, making proposals to overcome the challenges, and of course inclusive and collaborative work. And we also like in Istanbul, we are working with young people. We are working, of course, with a gender approach and so. And then, well, there are 6 perspectives of work in the strategic plan. So we have taken all the reality of the metropolitan region, and we are now dividing into sectors, but analyzing the same reality, the same complex reality from different perspectives. So in every one of these axes, we are working from economy, environment, social issues, and so on, governance issues, but from one different perspective. One from the perspective of cohesion, one from the perspective of resilience, one from the perspective of the smart metropolis, etc. And as I said, the most important thing is to have these missions. For the moment, we are thinking about 4, 5, 6 missions the most, and like they are working on missions in the in the European Union and other governments.
It has been 15 minutes. Can you?
This is this was the last one. So thank you very much, and I'm open to questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you for this excellent timing, Oriol. I'm really impressed. It's exactly 15 minutes. Thank you for that. And now I would like to give word to Yimin. Yimin Wu is a planner at Beijing Municipal Institute of City Planning and Design. She worked on Beijing Master Plan 2016-2035 and has been focusing on annual monitoring of the master plan's implementation. The word is yours, Yimin.
Hey, hello, everyone. I'm Wu Yimin from Beijing, China. I'm working for Beijing Municipal Institute of City Planning and Design. I'm very pleased to present at this prestigious conference. So the topic that I want to present is Beijing Master Plan 2016 to 2035 and its implementation. Well, Beijing is located in the North China Plain. It is the capital of China, a world-renowned city of history and culture, as well as the center city of Jing-Jin-Ji megalopolis, the region. You can see Beijing here, and another big coastal city, Tianjin here, and other small cities. Well, Beijing is a big city. The total area of its administration is more than 16,000 square kilometers. The mountain areas in the north and west, as the green color shows, takes 62% of the land. So the plain is about 6,000 square kilometers, which I guess is comparable to the size of Istanbul. Well, Beijing consists of 16 districts, and the 6 central districts in yellow color. Forgive me, I caught a cold, so forgive me with my voice and coughing. Okay, these 6 central districts in yellow color is called the central city of Beijing. The other 10 are suburban districts, and the 2 small districts in orange color in the center is the old city of Beijing. It is the core protection area of historic Beijing. Okay, so Beijing has a history of 3,000 years, and it has been the capital since 860 years ago in many dynasties in China. The old city of Beijing remains its unique style, and this is the Forbidden City. As shown here in the distant view, outside the old city, Beijing is also a modernized megacity with rapid urban development. So new city centers have been built, including the CBD. This is a photo of the CBD, Financial Street, Science Park, etc. Well, Beijing is now home to more than 20 million residents. It has the most Fortune top 500 enterprise headquarters in the world. The metro system is 700 kilometers long. Beijing will soon become the only city in the world that hosted both the Summer Olympic Games and Winter Olympic Games. The Winter Olympic Games will be held in February 2022, which is only 4 months from now. Okay. In the meantime, Beijing is also facing what we would call big city diseases or big city problems, including urban sprawl, traffic congestion, skyscraping housing price, air pollution, and so on. Thus, in 2014, we began to prepare a new version of the city's master plan. Well, in China, the master plan is both a strategic development plan and a spatial plan. So this new master plan has been legally effective since 2017. It set development goals and strategies for Beijing for about 20 years. So the target year is 2035. The overall vision is to build a world-class, harmonious, and livable capital. Well, the plan focuses on some topics. The first one is to encourage scientific and technological innovation to keep the economic development vibrant and healthy. The second is better protection of Beijing Old City to exhibit and introduce Chinese history and culture to the world. So this is a protection and renewal plan of a historic block to reserve this kind of one-floor traditional Chinese architecture. The third is to promote sustainable urbanism and realize harmonious development between human and nature. The fourth is to improve the quality of public services and livability of urban spaces. So I will give you some examples about the problems Beijing is facing, the solutions promoted by the master plan, and how we are implementing the plan now. The first is about public services. You can see here that Beijing's population grew at about 400,000 people per year between 2001 to 2005, and also between 2011 to 2016. Well, this is quite fast, right? But between 2006 to 2010, it's even faster. The number doubled. This is because before and after 2008 Summer Olympic Games in Beijing, there were a lot of constructions and real estate investment. So economy growth rate was pretty high, and many people moved in Beijing. Also, the number of cars in Beijing doubled in just 10 years. Then what happened? Traffic congestion, air pollution, shortage of water resources, they all increased. Another big problem is that the speed of building new public service facilities cannot compare with the speed of population growth. So based on our estimation, the extra demand would be 500 kindergartens, 250 primary schools, 150 secondary schools, 40 to 60 general hospitals. So there was huge pressure at that time to provide more public services. Well, so how can we deal with this? Through innovative planning approaches. Here's what we do. In the master plan, there's a general goal, and there are several specific goals under this general goal. So there's a goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, and this is goal 4. Make life more convenient, more comfortable, and more beautiful. And these are some relevant indicators to increase the years of education, life expectancy, hospital beds, etc. So to achieve this goal, the master plan promotes mixed use of the land to provide space for public service facilities. So this is a land use layout map, and we compare the legends in this master plan and the legends in the last master plan. So in the last master plan, the zoning is more strict. There is residential land, land for public facilities, industrial land. But in the new plan, the legends are simplified. So the first one is residential and related services. The second one is working and related services. So that means it is allowed to build some public facilities on residential or industrial land without changing the land use type. So it encourages the construction or expansion of public facilities. And we also encourage space sharing of different public services. On community level, we invented a kind of land use type, which is called land for public affairs. This is a community that has a lot of children as well as a lot of elder people. So we made analysis about this community and concluded that the need for kindergarten is more urgent. So this land, as the arrow points out, this land was used as a kindergarten. Well, but now the birth rate is going down. So in a couple of years, when we don't need so many kindergartens, it will be turned into a nursing home for elder people. It can also be used as a community center or cultural center if needed. So the idea of land for public affairs is that it can serve the community's current needs and it can change over time. The second example is about environment. In recent years, Beijing's air quality has improved tremendously. In this picture, each red square represents a day with heavy air pollution. So we can see there are so much lesser polluted days now. In 2020, the average concentration of PM 2.5 was 38. That is a decrease of more than 50% compared with 2015. So what did we do? The master plan promotes Goal 5, become an eco-city with clean air and clear water, and a city surrounded by forests. So to control the air pollution, first we did deep research and find out where all the pollutants came from. So about 70% are from local. And among all local pollutants, vehicle emissions takes more than 30%, then from coal, manufacturing, dust, and others. So the plan made it clear that we will control energy consumption volume and adjust structure by reduce the use of coal, reduce vehicle emissions, control industrial pollution, etc. Well, this is a photo of Capital Steel Factory. It's an example of industrial land renewal. Well, so Capital Steel, as an example, it's the second largest steel enterprise in China. When Beijing won the 2008 Olympic Games bid, Beijing made a promise to improve urban environment. So in 2010, the Capital Steel Factory was moved to another nation. New emission standards were applied to its new factory. So of course it's it's cleaner now. And how to use the former site was of great concern. This is the old factory, and this is the renewal plan. There was no doubt that it will turn to sustainable development. So the plan is to develop sports and cultural industry, as well as innovation industry. The reuse of the factory will provide 32,000 jobs in total. And since the site has a story with the Olympic Games, so it was chosen to be part of the Winter Olympic Games. Well, 35% of the total floor area of the factory was maintained and reused. For example, the transfer station here, it was turned into the office building of the Winter Olympic Games Organizing Committee. And you can see this is the blast furnace, and this is number 3 blast furnace. And it is a popular site for fashion shows now. This picture is the number 5 blast furnace, and it is now a place for performances and concerts, and especially it's rock musicians' favorite. Okay, so many industrial relics were turned into sports or cultural facilities. Also, some green technology companies and recycle companies has moved in. They offered jobs, and all the 10,000 employees of Capital Steel who did not move with the factory have been re-employed now. So this is a newly built Winter Olympic venue, Big Air Shougang. It is set against the backdrop of 4 cooling towers. This is a cooling tower, and it will stage the freestyle skiing and snowboard big air competitions. This is one of the office buildings occupied by the organizing committee. This is a 2022 Olympic souvenir shop, and there's also a bookstore next to it. Okay, so the new master plan will guide Beijing's long-term development. Strong measures will be taken, and its orderly and continuous implementation is what we are pushing now. So because Beijing is now preparing for the Winter Olympic Games under this very challenging COVID-19 situation. So today I share with you some examples related to the Olympic Games. They represent Beijing and China's endeavor to achieve greener development and better life for residents. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Yamin, for this great presentation. I've taken my notes. I've learned a lot from it. I'm sure the audience, the viewers have taken their notes. I want to encourage them to ask us questions. If you have questions, there is really a great experience here from all around the world. We will be really happy to hear these questions. So now I would like to, by the way, I would like to remind you that after Rashid's presentation, we will discuss these questions together. I would like to give word to Rashid. Rashid Sedat is the Executive Director of Gauteng City Region Observatory. Previously, between 2011 2021, he headed the Gauteng Planning Commission in the office of the Governor of the Gauteng province. So the word is yours, Rashid.
Okay, thanks very much, Burcu. That was very appreciated. Let me get straight into my presentation. So, I mean, as Burcu was saying, I've been working in this area for the last 20 years in both the city of Johannesburg in the mayor's office, where I was the head of something called the Central Strategy Unit, and I was the head subsequently of the Gauteng Planning Commission in the office of the Premier. And currently, just recently, in fact, in June, I moved to become the executive director of an entity called the Gauteng City Region Observatory, and I'll explain that shortly. And I've been involved in many short, medium, and long-term strategic and spatial plans. Sometimes they've been a combination of them, including, there's a long list, but just to give you some sense of it, the Growth and Development Strategy 2020 of the city of Johannesburg that was done in the year 2006. And then we did a 5-year plan, which was linked to the GDS, called Integrated Development Plan. And this is a statutory plan that all municipalities are required in the country to do. And that was also done in 2006. When I moved to Gauteng, I was involved in the Gauteng Spatial Development Framework. And I've highlighted Gauteng 2055 as a long-term visioning exercise, I think much like the Istanbul one, which was done in 2014. And that's what I'm going to focus on today. Just a short detour where I'm currently working. It's called the Gauteng City Region Observatory. It's a partnership, a very unique partnership between the Gauteng provincial government, organized local government in the province, so all the municipalities are members of this association, and 2 of our local and premier universities, one called the University of the Witwatersrand, also known as WITS, and the University of Johannesburg. And the idea is really to be an urban observatory, but we should serve not only government, but all stakeholders in society as a whole. So just to give you some contextual sense of it, we as South Africa in the southernmost tip of the continent, as you can see in the green sort of top left component. And within that, we are focusing on Gauteng, which is that sort of green little thing. And it's the smallest of 9 provinces. So we have a unitary state, not a federal state, but we have them with provinces which have significant powers accorded by the Constitution. And within that, and that constitutes something like 1.5% of the total land area. So if you zoom in further, this is what you'll see. You see basically 3 metropolitan municipalities, which is the city of Johannesburg, probably the best known city after Cape Town in the country. And then north of that is the city of Tshwane or Pretoria, which is our capital city. And to the east of Johannesburg is the metropolitan municipality of Ekurhuleni, which is really an extension of Johannesburg, if you like, and developed historically as part of the sort of mining belt when gold was discovered in 1886 in this part of the world. It was basically a continuous mining reef. And then we have two districts, which are the West Rand and Sedibeng. And then if you zoom in further, what you'll see is basically the districts contain several municipalities within them, and we have a total of something like 10 municipalities in total. But I think the important point here is, and some of the my predecessors have speakers have spoken about this, is that, I mean, Johannesburg is the most famous. If you look at the map carefully, you'll see we have a very sprawled out kind of urban conurbation, around 18,000 square kilometers. And what it has is really, and that's a consequence of the history of South Africa. I think most people are aware of this term called apartheid. It's pronounced sometimes in English as apartheid. And that is because of the racial divisions that were enforced on the landscape, you know, in the previous colonial and apartheid eras. And of course, they remain within, you know, within the spatial landscape of Gauteng. It has, over the last couple of years, grown very substantially. I think that some of the colleagues were talking about the growth. In 1996, which was the first post-apartheid census, the population was in the order of just under 8 million. It's now sitting at 16 million. So it kind of doubled in the space of a quarter of a century. And that's because it is the economic heartland of the country. I mean, generating 35% of GDP, and now has a population of 16 odd million people. Why is my thing not moving? Oops, sorry, I don't know why it's, okay, yeah. So as I said, I'm going to be focusing on Gauteng 2055 and what it's about and why. It's really, it was conceived many years ago, and I'll show you the time frames, about a long-term vision to really have a sense about where we want to take Gauteng way into the future. The familiar kinds of challenges for a city region in the developing world, marked by urbanization, migration, poverty, unemployment, and climate change in the long term, and an ability then to translate that into sort of you know, more bite-sized chunked plans. The why for 2055, it's resonant for political reasons, in the sense that in 1955, there was this visionary document that was brought by the people who were struggling against the apartheid system, and codified that into something called the Freedom Charter. So the Freedom Charter is sort of this lodestar document, if you like, about how we see a new society, a democratic society, and a non-racial society. There was quite a long process, as you can see, that took us from 2005, where this idea was originally conceptualized, and then it went through several sort of iterations, etc., but really took off around 2009, and when I came on board, in particular in 2011, and took us a couple of years thereafter to bring it all together. So this was meant not to be a sort of a quick and dirty thing, and it, you know, but I think a well-developed, well-thought-out process. We had a very extensive public participation process, as you can see, young people, people of different ethnicities, people from different sectors and wards of life, and you can see the kinds of words and the sorts of things, the issues that people were really focused on in these very extensive public participation processes. And we got a vision which derived out of all of that. And it says the usual things about equitable growth, sustainable development, and infrastructure, social inclusivity, and good governance. I mean, those are the sort of the fundamentals of that particular vision. But what we did think about, and this wasn't, I mean, was part of our sort of internal kinds of processes. And I think some of the previous speakers were talking about, say, working with academics and so on, was to say, how do we, I mean, I think, conceptualizing this thing. What is the conceptual framework that would underpin all of this? But of course, based on the thinking coming through from the public participation process. And really, you can see right at the center of that, of a series of concentric circles, is the vision, very high level vision into 2055 around a livable, equitable, prosperous, and united city region, and with 4 kind of quadrants being sustainable development, equitable growth. Now, the reason why we talk about equitable growth quite a lot in South Africa is that we have experienced growth in the past, but it doesn't necessarily distribute. And one of our most critical problems, and I know this is a problem that's emerging in many parts of the world, is the issue of inequality. So how do you ensure that the benefits of growth are shared more equally? Good governance is self-explanatory, and of course, social inclusion and cohesion. And then what we did was that we then kind of unpacked that to actually make sure that the entire, I mean, everyone was really, I'm just checking my time, sorry. That everyone is, and all the different dimensions of the work of government and civil society as a whole is actually sort of fully taken care of. And we were also, what we found in the work, and this we almost kind of stumbled on it, not quite stumbled, but like we did this mapping process where we looked at how all of these things are kind of interconnected. So it's not a kind of linear thing. I mean, how does one thing relate to another? How does inclusive growth, relate to basic education and enter into social cohesion, et cetera, et cetera. And we found that the sort of the causalities and correlations between these different dimensions to be quite important to understand how we can actually trigger those things going forward. Now, in the time that I have left, I thought, let me just try and reflect on what were the learnings of this process. And they've been several years old, but I should also say that they're not only on Gauteng 2055, but also on the work that I've been involved in over the years. The first is political buy-in. And none of my predecessors made this point, but I think that if you don't have the buy-in of your mayor, your premier, your governor, etc., your process is dead in the water. And you can sit at a particular level and it won't come to fruition. So and I'm saying this up front because maybe it's somewhat unpopular for planners to say it, but I think we need to understand that it is ultimately a profoundly political process. The second issue is the sequencing, and what we found is that the process can never be linear. You can't go from this to that to that. It is replete with iterations and reiterations. Sometimes you have to take this sort of proverbial one step back to take 2 steps forward. So you actually realize, oops, we have to go back and do certain things. So and in fact, if you do this kind of mapping, I think you'll see a very sort of a complex picture of how this actually unfolded. Of course, when we started it, we had a much more of a linear process. But when we ended, we said, oops, we actually went backwards and forwards in a variety of different ways. The other issue, I think, the public participation is like, every planner learns this in planning school. Oh, you must, discourse is like, public participation, fundamental feature. Yeah, we all say that, absolutely. But it is really difficult because you have such a diversity of interests in society. There's no, let me just give you one example that we face. One example might be densification, because we have serious urban sprawl. But densification means that middle-class areas are affected and they don't want it. If you have new development, mixed income human settlements, I mean, the Americans have something called inclusionary housing, for example, right? Try and do that. You're faced with, in a democratic society, you are faced with enormous hurdles, and you're going to find yourself in court and so on. So it's trying to mediate all of these conflicting interests into a plan that actually would harmonize it as much as possible. I mean, it's not going to be free sailing after that, but I think for me, it's it's not only participation at the point of participation, but it's the interests of the stakeholders that you have going forward. The other thing that I've learned in strategic planning is about integration at a whole number of levels, and bringing many things together, between political mandates and development, the overall coherence of the product, and the kinds of interconnections we were talking about earlier on. And also this idea of intergovernmental integration. In South Africa, we have unitary state, which means that we have to ensure that there's a kind of a single kind of approach, but of course, allowing for significant differentiation. In the UK, I think they call it joined up government at some point in the past. And I'm nearly done. The other thing is about mediating planning horizons. So how do you kind of take your long-term vision and make sure that you put it into translatable short, medium, and long-term sort of things with the requisite level of detail for each of these things. And long-term, it should be visionary and should account for we should also account for rapid social, economic, and environmental changes. I know, and this is my final slide. And what about shocks? So, I mean, we need to ensure flexibility and agility when you have shocks. And I think the COVID pandemic has taught us more than anything else in recent years about our ability to actually be flexible and agile. So that even if you've got a plan, I mean, how do you kind of like shift the plan to make sure that you are ensuring continuity of the plan while at the same time responding to the shock? And with climate change and with other potential shocks coming into the future, I think it's going to be a bigger issue in the future for strategic planning than we had previously envisaged. And that is the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rashid. Your concluding remarks were very valuable to us. And we have some questions. We have around 20 minutes. And actually, with your concluding remarks related to that, we have a couple of questions about the shocks with climate change, pandemics. It is all related about that. So I would like to ask that question first. I would like to ask one of our audience asked actually, with the climate change speeding up, do you think we should increase the frequency of such master plans and focus on shorter terms with more aggressive targets? I want to add not only climate change, but also the unexpected shocks, crises that our cities face, such as migration and pandemics to this question. So our viewer is asking if we should increase the frequency of the master plans and focus on shorter terms with more aggressive targets. So who would like to respond to that question? Rashid, maybe would you like?
Sure, okay. You know, I don't think it's one or the other. I mean, maybe, and I don't think it's, you can separate it. I think very briefly, when we were hit with that in South Africa as a whole, including Gauteng, and I worked in the provincial government, we just dropped everything, okay, and we just focused on dealing with the pandemic and the health crisis, the food security issues that were coming up, and poverty and livelihoods and so on and so on, right? And I think that and we dropped everything else. So our program for the year was basically just went down the tubes. So and the point I made in my presentation is that we need to find mechanisms so we can kind of respond in an agile way to the shocks, but at the same time try and maintain our programs. And I think it's going to be very tricky, but I think that I would say is is the way to go, because it's a simple fact of the matter that the pandemic in living memory has never hit the world in maybe the last big thing that happened in the world was the Second World War, which ended in 1945. And for people like me, was born, well after that, it was like not even a memory. So I think that I mean, for me, it's not one or the other. I think it's how do we mediate and manage both of those elements.
Thank you, Rashid. Oriol?
Yes, thank you. This is exactly one of the reasons that we, in this new strategic plan, are adopting the mission-oriented innovation approach, because you are focused on outcomes, and every single event that could happen, like the pandemics, the only thing that happens is that accelerates some trends. For instance, in this case, digitalization, or we have demonstrated that a huge cooperation with science and governments can deliver a vaccine in a record time. So trends are accelerated, or other ones are stopped. So the only thing that you have is to move, the goal that you have set on the mission. So for us, it's very important to say, as I said, the new strategic plan will be initially a set of 4, 5, 6 missions related with reducing the economic effort to access to housing, for instance, or how to change our diets in order to make them more sustainable and healthy. And that means that you can adjust the mission. And once you have achieved this mission, you can set other ones. So this is the reason that we have adopted this approach.
Thank you. Yumin, do you have any response?
Yes, thank you. I think our fight against, I think it will take us a long time to fight against the pandemic, because there was other pandemics before COVID-19 and climate change. So I think it is really a long, you must make a long-term development plan. And like Beijing, we have a general goal, but we also have specific goals. So the general goal is a long-term goal, but we also have the plans towards the coming years. You can divide your goals and strategies into short-term and long-term. Also, I think another important point is that our plan, take Beijing as an example, our plan is consistent with the plan on national level. You see, China has this plan to reach carbon neutralization in 2050. So that's a long-term development goal on national level. So the Beijing will follow this national goal and will take actions step by step. So I think it's important to have a long-term strategic plan. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. We have another question. It is intended to be asked to Barcelona, but I really want to ask this question to all our speakers, because I'm wondering how you act as well. The question is, I will try to translate. Do you have relations with other metropolitan cities? And for the similar processes, do you exchange information, experience, or each city sets up its own system, its own process?
Okay, so I understand that this means internationally. So of course we are working.
Actually, Oriol, maybe I think once I read the question, I thought it was international, but I think it can be interpreted as national relation with the other cities as well. If you have a system, maybe you can respond in two levels.
Okay, and at national level, even at regional level in Catalonia, we have networks of cities with strategic plans, and we have, so once a year, all the directors of strategic plans from different cities of Spain meet normally in the city of Zaragoza, that is leading this network, and we share our approaches, and we do the same especially in the province of Barcelona, because we have a lot of municipalities that are working on this base. Yes, we are constantly sharing these approaches. The only thing is that sometimes the time frames are not the same, because our plan is for 2030 and the other ones are in 2025 and etc. So the times, so when we are developing this new, let's say, methodology, so maybe others are still working on the previous plan, etc. But of course there is a change, and at the European level, but there are other networks. We have Eurocities, we have metropolis at global level, no, and all of them have a specific working group on strategic planning, and especially for metropolitan authorities, is the European Metropolitan Authority Association that is led by the metropolitan area of Barcelona. And of course there we also work on strategic planning. And then from the experience of Barcelona in 1993, it was created a new association that is called the Urban Strategic Planning, Ibero-American Urban Strategic Planning Center, that is based in Barcelona too, and it works with Latin American cities since 1993. So yes, there is a huge movement of cities so discussing about how to do this strategic planning, because sometimes strategic planning is not, the best of the ideas for some governments, and they say that well, we are fed up with planning, and what we must do is to solve the problems. But we say without a proper strategic planning, you will not be able to solve most of the challenges that we have right now.
Thank you. Rashid, Yamin, do you have any response to this question?
Sure. Yeah, so it's okay. Let me just start with with what you were saying about cities on a national basis. So within South Africa, I mean, firstly, I've been working, even though I don't work for the provincial government anymore, I still work very closely with him. And we also work directly with particularly our metropolitan municipalities like Johannesburg and so on. So we also get them to cooperate at a sort of horizontal level, if you like, because they kind of contiguous municipalities, and often people just think about themselves within their own boundaries without sort of zooming out and thinking about themselves as part of a wider region. And I think that kind of consciousness is very important, because what it means is that there are many things like transportation, economic development, tourism, and so on, which are regional matters and not necessarily local matters. But because the cities themselves are big and powerful, they say, well, we want to go, do it by ourselves. So that's the one thing. And then also, I think within the South African context is working with the city of Durban, which is our biggest port, and then obviously the city of Cape Town. In the international context, we've had many relationships. One of our biggest relationships, interestingly, has been with the city of Chongqing in China, with whom we've had very extensive links. But I think in the COVID sort of context has just messed things up, and so there's been a big discontinuity there. And then Oriel will be happy to know that we are very active members of Metropolis. Our Premier is one of the co-presidents of Metropolis, and he's in charge of social cohesion. We will be participating fully in the Metropolis World Congress that's happening in November in a few weeks' time. And I think Beijing is also a member, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure, but Istanbul might be a member too. I'm not sure, but anyway. So one of the projects, and we have many projects, one of the projects that we are currently involved in is not the overarching story, but we're looking at metropolitan transport indicators between ourselves, well, coordinated by Metropolis. The metropolitan area of Barcelona is one of the coordinating groups, ourselves in Gauteng, and then the cities of Dakar in Senegal and the city of Maputo in Mozambique. So it's a very exciting project, and it's got traction. We, in fact, have funding for it, blah, blah, blah. So I think that for me, it's rather, you know, when you have these big MOUs with like 600 things on them, nothing happens, frankly. Okay, they'd rather find a project which is like specific, targeted, and do that. And can I abuse my time, Chair? And I want to make a little suggestion. I would love for us, just the participants of today, to work. And now that I've stopped being a public official and I'm more of a researcher. Can we not think about writing the stuff up into some kind of paper? I mean, I think the inputs have been valuable. I think there are lots of commonalities and differences. And if we just write for like maybe 8,000 word kind of paper, 2,000 words each per city, it's not a big commitment. And then we just put it together into a series of like, you know, what are the kind of key learnings coming out of this process? So, and I'm throwing it to you, Chair, but I think I would be interested in doing that. And I think we can then put it out there into the public domain.
No problem.
I think we all like the suggestion, but as far as I understand, we will leave our civil servant sides to the side, and we will just focus on our learnings experiences, personal learnings. Okay. So this is a promise then to do in the coming months, maybe in a month. Right. Okay. So Yumi?
No problem. Okay, first on international level, I think when we want to seek experiences from other metropolitan area or metropolitan region, the scale is very important. So for Beijing, we have a close relationship, close connection with the planners of Paris, because the Paris region is the total area is 13,000 square kilometers, which is comparable because Beijing is 16,000 square kilometers. So we have a so we will exchange data, and we seek experience from each other, and also another thing, I think another important point is that to look for the cities that has gone through the development process that your city is going through. So Beijing also we has a connection with Tokyo. We think we are both cities in East Asia, and Beijing is now kind of like Tokyo in Tokyo, but 20 years before. So we want to learn a lot of learning experiences from Tokyo. So we are closely connected now. On national level, well, in China, there are three most important metropolitan region. So Beijing as the central city of the region in the north, and Shanghai is the central city in the east, and Hong Kong is the central city in the south. So actually it's kind of it's a competing situation. So we both these three metropolitan regions want to attract talents. So they are competing now. Of course, we exchange planning experiences, but I think it's also interesting, and it can encourage the region to do better if you have this kind of a competing relationship. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Emin. Okay, we are in the last 4 minutes, as I can see, but we keep getting questions. So I will ask last 2 questions, but you will really need to answer very, very fast. One of the question is to Rashid. Our audience is asking how much the central government is affecting the plans. Although, I mean, you already mentioned that this is important, but how do they affect the plans, and the decisions made by the planners, do they accept it? They are wondering about that.
Okay. Yeah, very quickly. Look, I think South Africa is a unitary state, and that was part of the deal that we had made in the post-apartheid period. So there are very deep political reasons why we have a unitary state, not a federal state. Okay, and I think that we all have bought into that idea, which means that there is our constitution has a unique formulation which talks about different spheres of government and not different tiers of government, which means that governments are the spheres are autonomous up to an extent, but part of a common national agenda. So the answer to the first part of the question is basically that we have to be within the broad umbrella of the developmental direction of the central government. But of course, taking into account the specificity of Gauteng in our particular case, and also recognition more recently in the National Special Development Framework of the kind of the unique position of Gauteng is given its sort of economic kinds of importance. The second part of the issue around decision making, I think it's an articulation. I think in general they listen, but sometimes they don't. I think that if it goes against a political mandate derived out of the elections, by the way, our next local government elections are in a few days' time on the 1st of November, and we're going to and different parties take charge, and if they want to change direction, they may well change direction, which is why I made some of the points that I did earlier on. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashid. I don't think we time left for the rest of the questions, but I just want to tell one of them. They are asking what is the level of our achievement of our strategic plans in terms of percentage, and when this achievement level is lower than we expected, what we do. They are asking about that, but we don't have time to answer this. Maybe we can take this into consideration when we are preparing a common paper together. And another question was, what are the specific challenges for a metropolitan strategic plan? We will also focus on that on this paper. So before, in the last 30 seconds, I would like to thank you, first of all, my colleagues, for their speeches, their sincere exchange and contribution. It was lovely to be with you today. And I really have no doubt that we will continue this collaboration in future. And I would like to thank all the audience for listening and with your great questions. And I want to thank Marmara Municipalities Union for realizing this event again. It was lovely to hear. Goodbye.